Sure. We hold, Solutions for Change holds both mandatory and random drug testing. It's kind of an interesting dynamic when we have mandatory drug testing, all the residents are together and they're kind of joking about it. It's really quite an interesting sight to behold. They don't see it as a threat. They don't see it as a problem. They see it as, well, we're just checking the box and we'll get it done. But on a very rare occasion, and I would say it's less than 5% of our residents who are found out to have any kind of substance detected, what happens is we recommend those individuals to rehabilitation. If they choose to seek rehabilitation, we guarantee that they receive a space back at Solutions for Change after they've completed rehabilitation. So, you know, it's not, we don't see this as a punitive aspect of our program. We see it really as supporting the sobriety of the residents.
How many rules do the residents in your facility have to follow? I mean, it sounds very strict.
It is kind of strict. Our president, CEO, and founder is a former Marine, and he has a lot of great sayings. One of his sayings is, "You got to get up, suit up, and show up." And you know, he's got some great sayings. But the bottom line is, we don't really have a lot of rules. What we do is, when our residents say that they're willing to get sober and stay sober, when they're willing to work, when they're willing to get up and take their kids where they need to be in the morning, and they agree with us, we then enter into essentially a contract with them. The expectations are laid out in terms of meetings that they're required to go to, educational attainment that they're required to go to, rehabilitative services that they're required to go to. There's no surprises. It's not locked down. People are free to live their lives as they choose to lead their lives, as long as they do it in a way that exchanges their efforts for the benefits that they receive from our program. It's somewhat of a meritocracy, and we're proud of that because our residents want to be held accountable. As I said in my testimony, a lot of times they've completed or failed to complete other rehabilitation programs, but have continued to fall into addiction and homelessness and poverty. So they're looking for something, and we believe that we deliver something that's not only a value to them, but a value to the community.
Ms. Steve, what about your program? When someone fails?
Thank you. So about, I was going to ask if I could add to that. So about 50% of the women who enter our program, everyone is tested upon entering, fail a drug test. Some have become sober prior to the program, and it obviously depends on the drug, how long it lingers in their systems. About 20% fail a drug test, you know, in a period after that. None of them are kicked out. We use it as a mechanism to gauge how much more support they need. So we augment their AOD counseling. We augment
AOD,
alcohol and other drug counseling. We augment their therapy. We really surround them with a lot more love and support. It's used for us as a gauge to how much support they need, not a way to punish them. And there are women who have tested negative 3 or 4 times and are still in the program. Our gauge for them staying in the program is, are they working harder on themselves than we're working? And when the tables are turned, then that's when we look at maybe this isn't the right program for them. But testing negative is not a way to dismiss them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Chair.
so much, Senator. Thank you very much. Senators.
Senator Bates, no one disagrees with the what you're trying to accomplish. Homelessness is a scourge of our country this right now, and certainly of California. And the bill, however, you're creating a pilot program for 5 years for organizations, individuals, whoever, promise to turn around people's lives. You do have so I'm concerned about the eligibility of who's going to apply for the grants. Are both the organizations that are present today, are you both nonprofits?
Yes, ma'am.
And you have in the past received federal dollars?
Yes.
So, and you do fundraise like many others do?
Yes.
and you'd like to expand your particular program, and I think the hindrance right now is not meeting the HUD requirements to just be open to everybody. How many CalWORKs folks do you have in your programs? Do you know?
A lot of our residents, when they come to our program, are not enrolled in CalWORKs because they're not working. I mean, these are unemployed individuals. And so we attempt to get them enrolled in CalWORKs simply, and not exclusively, but on a very threshold, from a threshold perspective, just so that they can receive child care vouchers. So we encourage enrollment in CalWORKs. We encourage enrollment in a variety of programs because we know that that will benefit their ability to stay in our program and work our program.
For us, about 70% are CalWORKs enrolled when they come to us. The 30% that are not, they've either lost custody of their children to CPS or their families have taken custody. And so we are in the business of reunifying them, and assuming they do get reunified, their CalWORKs benefits would be reinstated. But it's about 70% upon entry.
And are they all referred, or they just find you somehow?
For us, it's a combination of both. We've been around for 30 years, so that we have word of mouth that definitely plays a factor, but we get referrals from the county, from CPS, from the police, from a variety of those sources.
All of the above. I wanted to speak to your concern with respect to funding, if I could. We're seeing a pinch, and it's a pinch both from public policies, from private grant makers, and a lot of it has to do with the concerns over mandatory drug testing. Right now, with respect to housing programs, in fact, the Veterans Housing and Homelessness Prevention Program that the California Department of Housing and Community Development, they made public a notification of fund availability. I think it was last year in April. And as we were looking to compete for those funds, we noticed that there was a provision that required adherence to Housing First policies.
Right.
We don't have a problem with Housing First. We don't have a problem with rapid rehousing per se, because we know that there are populations of the homeless that benefit from those programs. We don't believe that homeless families are part of the population that necessarily benefit from Housing First or from rapid rehousing programs. But the challenge that we had was the de facto requirement that we would not test. And so our concern, so from a public policy perspective, we're very concerned about that because it limits our ability to continue to provide the services we provide. The second concern we have with respect to private funding, foundations and grants like that, there seems to be a coordination between public policies and some of the foundations. There's an organization that's springing up in many communities called Grant Makers to End Homelessness, and they will not. So we've had private foundation grants that have given us donations in the past, given us grants in the past, and because we are not adherent to Housing First policies, have refused to do so. So that is a big concern. My big and my interest in this bill, particularly, is since so much of our percentage of our program dollars go into program, we don't have a lot of extra money for expensive evaluations. One of the things that I really liked that Senator Bates included in this bill is the 5-year evaluation. That would go so far in doing two really important things: longitudinally following the success of our program and also giving us feedback, necessary feedback, to see how we can improve our program. We'd love to know if folks, graduates of our program, go back, they lose their sobriety, but they maintain independence, they maintain self-sufficiency. Well, that would be great feedback to determine whether or not a requirement is necessary or not.
So and your program is about 1,000 days, you said.
Our program is a 1,000-day program, and it's significant. It doesn't mean that you have to, 1,000 days is required. In fact, we have a lot of our program participants who, because they're on Section 8 waiting lists,
Right.
if they're Section 8 name comes up and it's at day 700, great. We love the fact that they're going to get into Section 8 housing and they'll continue with our program, but not on our campus in their own housing.
If I may add, and I'm so glad you brought up this point, we completely agree. Housing first is a good solution for certain segments of the homeless population, but the people who have become homeless and impoverished is just as the breadth of people who become homeless and impoverished is just as broad as the people sitting in this room, and there's not a one-size-fits-all solution. HUD is 2.5 years delayed in releasing data to show how homeless families perform under Housing First. There is no national data. Everyone's kind of drunk this Kool-Aid, but there's no national data on how families perform under Housing First. And it's really, really important that we fund pilots like this to see what works for families in California. Again, we're not Missouri or Florida or Mississippi, we're California. And our dynamics are different, and we need to have different solutions for the different segments of the homeless population if we want to change what's going on right now.
Thanks. I may come back.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to say that I am fully supportive of the idea of putting more general fund money into finding solutions to homelessness and helping people who find themselves homeless get off the streets and back into our general society. And I really love and value hearing your stories and your fervor, and as the people who testified as well. I guess I'm having some problem with definitions here, because if we agree that everybody would like to see this happen, we would like to put a bill like this on the governor's desk, because we think we really need it in the state, but is a kind of confounding of clean and sober living with mandatory drug testing. And what happens with private money and what happens with public money. And it would seem to me that, I think as one of you spoke, you talked about the need for a protected and safe environment. I then say, can that only be accomplished by random mandatory drug testing? That, to me, is a big barrier to voting for this bill. And so, for me, that's a problem. I think there were amendments suggested by the committee, and I don't understand why programs like yours and other programs that might apply could not function perfectly well under that those amendments that were suggested. So for me right now, I know this is the last day for a bill to a 2-year bill to get out. I would point out, however, that if it did become law, if it got out today, it would not take effect until next January. If a new bill were to be introduced in 2 weeks and were passed into law, it would take effect next January. So for me right now, unless somebody can clarify these issues, I think that is something that is kind of a poison pill for me right now.
May I respond to that?
Sure.
I think,
Well, through the chair,
yeah.
yes,
Please
please.
go ahead.
Yeah.
yeah, I think we heard from 3 people who said they needed to be tested. They needed to be in a protected, sober environment. In order to get rid of your CPS case or to get rid of your drug court case, you have to be tested. You have to be tested randomly, and you have to be tested upon suspicion, and you have to show those tests to CPS and to the drug court in order to have your case dismissed. That it's crucial.
It really sounds like a confusion between laws that we have on the books, between what's going on with HUD and what they are asked to do, and what our local social welfare programs have required also to, in order to get your children back. It seems to be a conflict in the rules that are currently present. Am I hearing this right?
To be able to get your children back, you absolutely have to be drug tested. But to be able to access services at nonprofits, it's up to the nonprofit organization to be able to do so.
Right.
And so, like, for example, St. John's believes, don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've been very articulate and passionate about this, believes the best approach is to be able to drug test. And what we've heard from brave women who talked here today is that helps them be able to achieve sobriety. But there are also other programs, hundreds of programs across California, that have a different approach, that do not require mandatory drug testing, that also have positive results as well. So absolutely on the issue of CPS, you have to be able to prove sobriety. But when it comes to funds, so typically on TANF, and we're not talking about TANF funds here, we'd be talking about general funds, mandatory drug testing would not be prohibited. California, when it comes to issues of clean and sober living, as we all know, has not required mandatory drug testing.
Right.
And that is why we have been offering up this compromise.
May I say something, Senator McGuire?
I'm going to finish here real quick.
Oh, sorry.
Definitely will want to hear it,
Okay.
is that, look, the program that St. John's is an incredible program here in Sacramento. They do wonderful work, achieve amazing results for those who participate. But I'm going to go back to the one-size-fits-all approach. There's $50 million, and I don't want to speak for this committee, but I bet there could be a unanimous vote. If we were to take the compromise language that was drafted, and by the way, it's 2 compromises in, did another compromise after Senator Bates and I met the first time to try to be more flexible, but pure is getting in the way of the good. And we have, when it comes to compromises, each side has to be able to compromise. So we have compromised with the language that has been brought forward. And I get it, a compromise is not a perfect solution, but what we believe is there's a determination that if a program participant is not in compliance with the sober living policy that is in effect at the individual nonprofit, they have the ability to be able to evict. The violation of the sober living policy is grounds to terminate participation from the pilot program. It clearly states this in this compromise language, item number 8, that folks do not agree with. And the reason why folks do not agree with is because of that last line. Mandatory testing for drug or alcohol use for pilot project participants only is prohibited. At the same time, though, we're allowing those organizations continue with mission control by saying if there is a violation, it's grounds for termination. And that is why I say, after significant discussion, trying to reach across the aisle and looking for the best solutions, we are here today, and I have moved twice. And I get it. It is the policy of some organizations, but I think that we have compromised. And we postponed the hearing to continue discussion. That is why we're here. We're supposed to have met on Tuesday to allow for additional discussion. And this bill is a significant step forward. And too many times in politics, whether it's in California or the U.S., the pure gets in the way of the good. And I'm going to speak from my own personal view. I have a family member that has struggled with methamphetamine addiction for 15 years. And he went up and down throughout his addiction, as most do. And he has been in and out of facilities for the greater part of his adult life. One-size-fits-all approaches never worked for him. And if there's an ability to help fund wonderful organizations like St. John's or others that we have, I think we have a solution here today. But there's going to have to be a compromise to be able to get this bill moving. So I'm going to turn it back to the senator because this is very personal for me as well. I think for many of us in this room, and would like to be able to see one last time, if you are willing to be able to accept, I think you've accepted all other amendments, with the exception of item 8, which is under the clean and sober environment section. And Senator, I know you wanted to say a few more words as well. I'm going to ask for your closing, and then also ask if one last time in regards to Section 8 and the amendment that is in Section 8.
I'll just start with that, Senator McGuire. The real issue with the language that specifically removes those who are pilot project participants from being drug tested puts two different tiers of accountability into the system. That's the issue with the way it came forward finally. We compromised early on by taking out randomized drug testing and put in clean and sober environment. And I think what we've struggled with as, you know, you and me over is how do you define clean and sober environment? And we had a number of options. I don't think that the addition of mandatory testing for drug or alcohol use for pilot project participants really defines a clean and sober environment. I think everything before that does. I think I have hoped we could say clean and sober environment is not defined by drug testing, because that does support the other part of the bill that leaves it to the discretion of the program operator how they're going to do that. And in a situation like Ms. Steeb has, she's got 2 levels in there right now. She's got the CPS people that have to be drug tested, and she doesn't kick them out when they fail, but she would have these folks in here that would not be drug tested but could possibly be violating the clean and sober policy. So we got to get hung up. Where I get hung up is that we have 2 tiers, and I don't believe these individuals can have that in their programs. So the problem is we can go forward with this bill as with the compromise language, but they're no longer able to participate. Does that bring brand new folks who've never been in this whole arena trying to lift people out of poverty, get them into homes, get them off drugs, all the things they need to do, be better parents, et cetera? They're going to start a new program with our state money, and we're going to base everything on the 5-year metrics that come out of that. I don't think that's a good place to start. I think we have to include these folks who've been out there, in the arena, doing the fight, so that they are not prohibited from participating. That's the crux of this.
Well, I think,
if we
and I
can
hear
find
that.
a way to do that, they're happy. Or, I think what Ms. Hancock, Senator Hancock said is really on point. We do have more time because the implementation date goes forward into 17. Maybe we have an opportunity, to reintroduce and try to, again, get something that does not prohibit these very successful programs that are really cutting edge. And how great for California, cutting edge on this particular issue, fantastic. And having it partner with Housing First, have it partner with what's been introduced in Prop 63. I think we've got something here. I don't want to quit. I won't quit. I never quit. That's why I'm still here, kind of ran again. Somebody said, do you want to go back? I said, yeah, there's still stuff to do. So I'm for that. But if you want to move it forward today, we can go back to clean and sober environment. It's got a
Senator
long
Bates,
ways to go before it gets to the floor, to the governor's desk.
I think where we're at now is that we, after our discussions, this is where we ended up. And I understand that you're concerned about the specific agencies that have spoken here today would not accept these funds. Now, could not per the policy,
They-
absolutely, the
yeah.
policies.
Are we trying to say could not apply? Because I'm assuming this isn't a program that's set up already with recipients in mind, but
Right.
a number of people would be applying.
Yeah, they would not be eligible.
Now, that is why we came up with the language prior to the mandatory testing that allows each program to have the discretion to be able to terminate a participant from their program. And I get that it does not get strictly to where they want to go, and compromises are never going to be perfect. So the way I look at it is this, and I said this in my opening statement. This is the most significant advancement in a policy like this that we have seen. So, item number 8 is what I'm hearing is you're unable to accept the amendment at this time and want to continue to work.
Right.
Okay. And Senator Bates, I want to offer a closing statement. If you'd like to be able to offer a closing statement, I'd like to be able to bring it back to the committee after you have a closing statement.
Probably all that's been said, it's all been said, but I think most important thing, I just want to thank all of you. I know we're looking at it through different lens, maybe the same lens in some of the areas and a little different in others. So we don't give up. And certainly if we were to just say, can't do it, we would be giving up on the very individuals that came here to testify today. So I appreciate, again, all the work. I just want to give our social workers, having been one, having been in the arena, getting very disillusioned as a young social worker that there wasn't more we could do. And I will say, very importantly, that the Welfare Reform Act of the Clinton administration made a huge difference in what we could do as social workers in our agencies. We got to provide childcare. We got to provide job training. There was a time limit, but all those things were not available to me when I was a social worker. So we have made strides. I believe this is going to take us over the goal line. This is going to take us over the finish line, and we've seen us doing that. So I won't give up. I just asked for your aye vote on the original clean and sober living environment, period.
No, thank you so much, Senator Bates. I greatly appreciate that. The issue that we have in front of us is the current language, which is under item 8, under clean and sober, and I do understand where the senator would like us to be able to focus. But the issue that we do have in hand, and please no slide to the senator when I say this, is we're only going to be taking action on item 8, and that is the clean and sober environment. And so here's where we're at the moment, is that Senator, as I heard, is not willing to accept the amendments that are in item 8 in regards to the compromise language. Which means the bill is not going to be moving forward. And again, I think we made significant progress from where we started. And compromise is never going to be perfect. And this will be the last time I say it. It's unfortunate that we let perfection get in the way of good. So I'd like to be able to see if there is a motion to hold the bill in committee, and my commitment will be to Senator Bates, is that we are going to continue to have the discussion and work.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I actually wanted to move the bill that includes the original, without the amendment to 8.
That bill is not in front of us. So,
I believe so. Okay, yeah, January 4th version.
None of the amendments that the command staff has put together.
No, all of them except for 8. H or 8?
you wanna-
8.
I get it. So Senator Nguyen wants to be able to move the bill that is in front of us, and I'm going to say this, so please correct me if I'm wrong. You want to strike, tell me what you want to strike in 8.
Help me with that. Where's- So we want to strike the committee's recommendation, mandatory testing or for drug or alcohol use for pilot project participant only and is prohibited.
Got it. So I'm going to repeat this and just making sure, Senator Nguyen, just make, that is
It's
on
page 2. Well, I'm sorry, no, this is my docs, I'm sorry. This is different.
The mock-up is
Page 3. So I'm going to read what the motion is, and Senator Nguyen is going to make sure that I am correct in the motion. The motion is to move the bill as presented, striking the following language. Mandatory testing for drug or alcohol use for pilot project participants only is prohibited. Is that correct, Senator Nguyen?
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor to be able to strike all that language that I just stated. We're going to go for a roll call vote and see where this goes. Mr. Teamer?
McGuire?
No.
McGuire, no. Berryhill? Hancock? No. Hancock, no. Lou? Lou, no. Wen?
Aye.
Wen, aye. 3-1.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Senator Nguyen. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So now would like to be able to see if there is a motion to be able to hold the bill in committee. And again, my commitment is going to be to continue to discuss and work with Senator Bates on this issue as we have over the last year and a half. We have a motion by Senator Liu to be able to hold the bill in committee. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
McGuire?
Aye.
McGuire, aye. Berryhill? Hancock? Aye. Hancock, aye. Lou? Lou, aye. Wen?
Aye.
Wen, aye. 4.
All right, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. So Senate Bill 659 is going to be held in committee, and we'll continue to work with Senator Bates. I want to say thank you to Senator Bates for all of her work. I want to say thank you to the three leaders of the wonderful programs that have taken time out of their busy schedules to be here. I want to thank our other the incredible women that have taken time out of their schedules to be able to testify and also to tell your stories as well, which we greatly appreciate. Also want to say thank you to Taryn for all of her work, and I want to welcome Taryn to Human Services, and she is going to be taking the place of Sarah, who got a heck of a promotion as well. So we are really thrilled that Taryn is here. And just a quick update on Mariva. She is doing wonderful and healing and improving, and we, knock on wood, hope to see her back here a little bit later this year, but our thoughts continue to be with her, and she really is improving, so which is just fantastic news. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you here next month.